Hi everyone, welcome back to Hazel's Flight School. I'm Lily Margolis,
And I'm Josh Gosnell.
and today we're talking about different types of beer glassware. So, Josh, I've always drank my beer out of a pint, pretty basic, pretty standard. Does what beer you put in your glass matter? Does the glass impact the flavor? Let's get into these glasses and talk about all of them.
Yeah. So typically, as we'll see in bars, we'll see our just traditional shaker pint glass. That's pretty standard. You'll see that pretty much any bar that you go to. You get into a lot of the craftier stuff, kind of the more niche beer styles. We'll talk about those a little bit later, but typically we see just the shaker pint glasses, named because kind of kills two birds with one stone. You can serve a beer into it, and it's also part of your shaker when you shake cocktails. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 on those bars that have the full spectrum of alcohol. You can pour a beer into it, you can also shake your drinks with it. Or they have their own shaker cups, but we're just worried about the pint glass portion of it. Pretty standard, nothing wrong with it. It's just an easy, simple glass. Now, the glass does matter, and it doesn't matter at the same rate. A lot of it is presentation, but some of it does come down to the science or even a little bit of a history to the beer, to the styles, and how they came about. For starters, we have the Stanga here. As you can see, Reisdorf Kolsch being the typical style served in these. Now, there's something in Germany or in craft breweries with a German background with a Kolsch on the end at least, they'll do something called Kolsch service. So what happens is you get your coaster and they will mark down each beer that you have. Now these are only about, if I remember right, between 130 and 220 milliliters, so really not all that much beer, but it's just meant to be enjoyed kind of quickly. We get the tall glass here because it shows off the crisp, clean clarity of the Kolsch itself. Now, if you were at a Kolsch service, they would come and bring around a Kranz, which means wreath. So it's a whole bunch, like 8, 10, 12 of these Kolsch Stanga glasses. And what they'll do is they'll just go from table to table. If you have your beer empty, they'll bring you another one, make a mark on your coaster. And then when you're done with that one, they'll bring you another one, they'll bring you another one, they'll bring you another one. They just kind of wait until your glass gets low or empty. And then if you say, okay, I'm done, I can't have any more, you would take and put your coaster on top of your glass, signaling that you're through. They would get your tally, charge you for that, and you'd be on your way safely.
Sounds very efficient.
So if you have any breweries around you that would do something like that, highly recommend it. It's a fun time. Also, really great style for it. Just a couple little sips of just a nice clean Kolsch. Great way to spend an afternoon.
Awesome.
So the next one is a Pilsner glass. See, it looks pretty darn similar. So historically, the Pilsner was made after the creation of a kiln that would allow us to get paler grains malted. So when we got those paler grains malted, German brewers wanted to show off how clear, how clean their beer would look. Hence, it's very thin and tall, so you can see right through the beer itself, just to show you how pretty those beers look. And if you do one from Bierstadt, for example, you'll understand why they call it slow pour Pils. It takes a minute, but it's well worth the wait to get that Pilsner. So next up, we have our Czech dimpled mug. Now, when I see this glass, I typically think of Pilsner Urquell, because to me, this is what they serve it in. What you'll see a lot of the times is a massive 2 to 3 inch head, or even more. There's a Milko pour that's basically all foam. Us Americans, we would scoff at that, but what does that do to the beer? Brings all those aromas, volatilizes them in that head. As those bubbles slowly pop, that head dissipates over time. It releases a lot of those flavor and aroma compounds that you get, and it does drastically change the beer. With Pilsner Urquell as well. There's a video out there. There's about, I think, 6 or 8 different ways to pour the beer into this glass to get different results. You get a creamier beer, you get more hoppiness out of it, you get more of that aroma, you get a softer pour.
What purpose do the dimples serve on this mug? Are they just there for aesthetic purposes, or is there a reason?
More so now, but I believe historically it was because they can give you a little bit more grip on them. Those dimples on there, you can, and especially with the handle as well, you can get a good clean grip on that. Whereas a pint glass, you have this in your hand, it gets some condensation. There's really not much to grip onto here but the glass itself. So with this, you have some dimples, you have some nice little finger holds, you've got the handle on it, so it's a little easier to drink from. Going to the English dimpled mug, this very, very similar guy. You'll see this served with mild ales, English pub ales, ESBs, those sort of style beers, the old English styles for sure. You'll see a porter, a stout, anything from that sort of realm in one of these English dimpled mugs.
Between the Kolsch Pilsner and these two different styles of dimpled mugs, how does the width of the mouth affect the aroma and taste of the beer?
So a lot of it will kind of focus all of those aromas kind of straight into your nose as you're drinking them, as you have your nose to the glass. Like these guys, like the Stanga and the Pilsner glass, they have it just very concentrated, very thin. As you get the nucleation from the bottom of the glass, when you get those bubbles forming, you'll see the bubbles rising from the bottom of your glass to the top. That just drives all that aroma straight up, straight into your nose as you're enjoying it. These guys do a similar sort of thing and more just kind of rests on the top of the beer, hence that quite a bit of foam, quite a bit more foam than we as Americans might be used to. So with that, it just kind of settles over the top of the beer, and as you slowly enjoy it, you still get that aroma just kind of reminding you every sip a little bit of what you're having. Moving on, we have the Weissbier or Weizen glass. Now, do you remember when we were talking about Weiss or Weizen, what did that mean for us?
Don't remember.
It's German for white or wheat.
Okay.
So this is a German wheat beer glass. Typically your Hefeweizens, your Weissbiers, similar sort of thing there. You'll notice kind of the hourglass shape to it. These are also poured with a pretty decent amount of foam. The wheat beers, the wheat in there helps a lot with that head retention, so you'll maintain a lot of that head as you're drinking the beer. With those Hefeweizens, with those Weissbiers, you get a lot of that phenolic, estery yeast character. You get the clove, the allspice, the banana, the bubblegum, and that all comes to the top, comes to that just tip of your nose. You get all of that enjoyment. That's definitely part of the big draw for German wheat beers, Hefeweizens in general. It's just that aroma being a key part of it. Mm-hmm. Last but not least, we have the Moss Krug. Many of you will recognize this from either German restaurants or from the German Oktoberfest. You'll see these full liter mugs filled to the brim all over the place. You'll see the server girls grabbing 8 or 10 at a time impressively, bringing these to the table. So that would be kind of the serving style. You'll get a lot of your lighter German beers. You'll get some of your Helles, some of your other lagers, your Fest beer, your Oktoberfest. Some of those guys would be in this sort of glasses if it wasn't served in a Pilsner or a Kolsch glass. This is just kind of a big serving meant to be enjoyed just over a period of time, and usually on that lighter end of the spectrum for the German stuff, because you are drinking a liter of it.
Yeah.
Moving forward now to a few newer glasses, a little atypical than what we may see. Some of the other ones we saw were a little more traditional. This gets into a little newer style of glassware in general. For starters, we have a Gueuze or a Lambic glass. So these are your typical Belgian sours, usually a blend of 1, 2, 3, or even more year-old beer. So it has that depth, that complexity, especially if you get some of the aged sours. If you get some that are years old, they'll be quite lively. So another drink that's awful lively is champagne. So it's designed in a similar sort of way to champagne because it'll be really effervescent, really lively, and really give you the brightness of some of those sours and be able to just feel the quaffability, just the drinkability of some of these really delicate, really flavorful sours at the same rate.
Do the ridges on the bottom of this glass have an impact on the flavor, or are those just there for aesthetic reasons?
I believe they're just decorative because they are on the outside, the inside of the glass, not as much. It may help with nucleation a little bit to get that carbonation to really pop from some of these gooses and lambics, to kind of give you a little bit more of that pop of aroma, that little pop of flavor to it. Next, we have two different sort of typically Belgian glasses. So we have a goblet and a chalice. Biggest difference between those being the thickness of the glass. Like with a goblet, you think just something a little bit heavier, a little bit heftier, thicker walled glass, whereas the chalice will have just slightly thinner walls to it, but serving some of the same purpose. A lot of these glasses typically will be branded with certain breweries. They'll all kind of have their own design, their own style, their own shape to it, just as their personal touch on this style of glass. Now you'll notice too, especially with this Duvel glass, the lip on that upper lip, it kind of brings everything together and opens back up, really driving that aroma, concentrating it and letting it all kind of come out, settle again on the top of that beer, just giving you a wonderful aroma. Especially with the Duvel, for example, it's one that you just want to keep your nose in the whole time. You want that aroma, you want to enjoy that as long as possible. Really just beautiful part of those style of beers.
I have to say, this is very cool artwork on this. Is this a collector's item? Do people specifically try to collect these glasses from different breweries and producers?
Yes, I would say so. A lot of breweries and a lot of events will have specialized glassware. Some of it will be just typical shaker pints. You'll see some different breweries, some different events, just depending on what it is, they will release or have like their own branded glassware. For an Oktoberfest, I've seen some of the Moss Krugs for some of those German style ones. If you have different breweries doing thematically different beers, they'll usually have a different release. And otherwise too, if you do like Colorado Pint Day, across Colorado, there's dozens of breweries that do it. Get this cool artistic pint glass from whichever brewery you go to on that day. And it is a little bit collectible. If you're like a lot of people in the beer industry, though, you have far too many glasses.
Yeah.
Your collection becomes collecting dust very, very quickly. But all of these glasses are a lot of fun to enjoy some of those fun beers. You know, if we have an Orval for Orval Day, definitely have to grab the Orval glass. And then we get into a newer style here, this Teku glass, designed by a wine glassware manufacturer. So it's got elements of both kind of a wine glass and a beer glass at the same rate.
Definitely see that.
And what I would typically see in something like this, a lot of fruited or barrel-aged sours. Great way to do it. You can keep your hand off the glass so you aren't warming the beer up nearly as much. So it keeps it kind of at a relatively lower temperature than if you had your pint glass in your hand. And then typically what we see from a lot of beer drinkers, I would say for myself, this is your best overall sort of glass. You know, it's not the perfect glass for every beer, but it's a good glass for most every beer. And it's either a tulip or a snifter glass. Now, this is a snifter, excuse me, typically used for like brandy. for something in that ballpark. You can use this for a lot of those same deeper, richer, more complex beers. If you have your stout, it does have a little bit of a stem on there, but not really. And then getting your hand on that glass will help warm your stout up, for example, and start getting some of those flavors to really, really concentrate to give you that just blast of aroma right in the nose. But you can use this for practically any beer. I enjoy it. It's a good neutral serving platform for a lot of beer styles. You could drink, pretty much anything out of here, and it'll be a serviceable glass for that. And then going on to, we've got a couple of fun, newer style IPA glasses. You don't need to drink an IPA in these glasses, it's just how they were designed. So a lot of these get really, really fun. They get really, really creative with the design of the glasses. Some are just absolutely wild. I've seen some that look like just a glass carton of chocolate milk you would get at like middle school lunch. It's like, is that serving any purpose?
Well, it's interesting.
Not exactly, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. There's a lot of just wild designs out there. These two definitely coming onto the scene recently, with more of the IPA crowd becoming the main driver of craft beer. I would typically see probably a New England style or a hazy in one of these glasses. It would just show the opacity, just that creamy, just almost buttery looking body to it. And so it shows off just that really cloudy, hazy character of it. Still has some lips, a little bit of curvature to it, to again get all of those hop aromas, that juiciness, everything just front and center in your nose. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This has been just a little exhibition into the wild and fun world of beer glassware. I'm Josh.
I'm Lily Margolis.
And join us again next time for our next flight school.
Ask your questions in the comments. Hi everyone, today's trivia question is, what style of beer goes in a Stonga glass? Be the first person to correctly answer this question in the comments to win a $10 Hazel's gift card.